what's the average lifespan of a smoker? So I'm going to look at this in a couple of different ways, but it is less, significantly less than a smoker. All right. So let's look at it. Let's look at a couple of ways of sort of thinking about this. Look, one of the things I grew up hearing was that every cigarette a person smokes reduces their life by 11 minutes. Each carton of cigarettes, is a day and a half lost of life. And every year a person smokes, they shorten their life by a couple of months. Now, there are actually some quite compelling statistics from the UK here on this. So we have the Office of National Statistics in the UK here are pretty good, pretty solid at gathering data from across, England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, putting that data together and looking at, or certainly the largely the data from a lot of data from England and Wales, which they can gather sort of independently and also sort of bring together. In fact, the Office of National Statistics is just down the road here in Newport in Wales. Now, listen, what the teams they do, and they've got a lot of top statisticians working on this, is they will evaluate what the risks to certain things are. That they'll have data from hospitals, they'll have data from all kinds of places that they can collect together. And here's what we are looking at in 2023. By the way, this data will also be used by insurance companies. It'll be used really to determine a lot of things in our lives. Okay, so as of 2023, the life expectancy in the UK is approximately 81 years for women. The life expectancy is approximately 21. So as of 2023, the life expectancy in the UK is around 81 years. That's women are living 83 years and men are living 79 years. Okay, so in the UK, the life expectancy is overall around about 81 years. Okay, and there's this sort of 4-year gap between men and women. The women are living on average to 83, the men are living to 79. Which is a bit of a concern as well, especially since, bear in mind, if we look at the data on heavy smokers, smokers that smoke over 25 a day, which can at least in some of the populations they've been looked at, be as much as maybe 25% of people. The majority of them are men, and they're men over 30. They don't perceive that they can quit smoking. They feel it's going to be very, very difficult. They also don't have jobs. So they combine all those factors of not being employed, smoking, all those kind of things, smoking heavily. There are huge risk factors. And I suspect that might be part of why that's feeding into this discrepancy between the life expectancy of men and women. But look, we've got an average here of about 81 years. Now, we know that about half of all smokers die from smoking-related diseases. That data is pretty consistent across the world where data is being gathered. Okay, so if you're a long-term smoker, on average, your life expectancy is about 10 or 11 years less than a non-smoker. Okay, so if we put that in perspective here in the UK, about 8 in 10 non-smokers live past the age of 70. But only half of long-term smokers live past 70. All right. So there are a bunch of people who are living, 10 or 11 years less because they smoke. Of course, this is on average. That's going to vary loads. For some people, it might be 20 years, 30 years, that when they die, the other people, it may be sort of much more close to the average. But on average, we're talking 10 years or more. Okay, so whatever the life expectancy is in your country, a rule of thumb, if you take off 10 years, that's the cost of smoking. Now, we did some analysis here, this was a few years ago here in the UK, when my word, the cost of cigarettes was a lot cheaper than it is now. It was about £10 a packet, roughly 10 or 11 US dollars. Now, of course, it's about £12 sterling. So 12, 13, 14 US dollars, depending on the exchange rate. But even with £10 a pack, somebody's smoking 20 a day. That's well, let's think of that over a year. So 365 days, we'll just add that zero on the end, £3,650. Okay, these days it's going, way past that as well. Okay, so it's not uncommon for people to be smoking and maybe 25 a day or 30 a day, and they're paying £12 a pack of cigarettes. So now they're getting closer to £4,000 or even £5,000 per year for smoking. And a lot of those people, particularly the heavy smokers, are at the poor end of the spectrum, fewer job prospects, more depression, all those kind of things, and that'll be compounded with COPD, emphysema, all these kind of things. All right. So it's not good news if you're a smoker, unless you quit, in which case it's great news because your body largely in many, many areas, carbon monoxide levels, stroke, your risk of stroke, your risk of heart attack, your risk of lung cancer will go down very, very significantly. Okay, so it's always a good idea to quit smoking, and to do that, it's a good idea to get support. You may need a medical referral depending on your state of health, and you certainly will benefit from having someone who can guide you through that process. But just understand, we're looking at 10 years is the difference there. Now, another way I just want to think about it here is we've already seen that the average man in the UK is living to 79, the average woman is living to 83. That gap seems to be growing, and that gap is sort of there in other Western countries as well, and some other countries around the world. So let's say that you've got a heavy smoker. Well, if you have a heavy smoker, they're much more likely to be a male. All right. So, and we know that they're living less. We're living a shorter period of time than a smoker is living 10 years, let's say, less than a non-smoker. So it's very likely there are a lot of relationships where there's a non-smoking wife who's already going to live 4 years younger, 4 years longer. You've got a male who's smoking heavily. Okay, well, now that person is likely to die. The male's likely to die 14 years before his wife, unless he's smoking at home, in which case he's kind of evening the kind of he's evening and shortening that distance, because the passive smoke will be having a big impact on anyone else in the house. But it's a real problem, because then obviously we're getting a large number of people who are dying younger, a lot of them men, a lot of them husbands, who, and that of course have a detrimental effect on their wider families, on their loved ones. So good news to stop smoking. There's great news for that in terms of what your body can do to repair itself and the psychological benefits and the sense of well-being. Not so great for people who carry on smoking, never make the change, because on average it's going to be around about 10 years, probably a little bit more actually, all in all. But that just gives you an idea when you think about what the life expectancy of a smoker is, or a life expectancy of a smoker in the UK. Really, that's where we're at. In 2023, we've got some very clear data about life expectancy for men and women. The average kind of life expectancy for that, and then the fact that smokers really only about half of them are living past the age of 70, whereas most non-smokers, 8 in 10, a far greater number of them, are making it past that mark.